become very, very fragile, and they use state institutions to frustrate the ambitions of the oppositions. So the electoral processes are always very, very contestable to the point where, if you look at most all the Central African countries, they are already preparing their president, their children, to take over. It is no news that in Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, we are seeing how the son of Ujambeng is already at the verge, who is the vice president close to the father. His every indication shows that he is the one to replace the father. Denis son is also preparing in Congo. The son and the daughter. In Chad, it's already clear. The son is already. I mean, we saw how the father, in a very questionable manner, how the father was assassinated, and we saw the role of France and how it was like more of an installation of a king who left, and then the prince took over. And then in Gabon, we saw that Ali Bongo is already there, and in Cameroon, we already saw his successor was being presented in almost all international summits. How? Because when you look at the son of the president, he doesn't occupy any Republican position or state institution that permits him to partake in some official state ceremony. You saw him when he was being presented in Macron. Don't know the protocol under which he falls. We only know that he's the son of the president. Well, so those are some of the issues that when you ask of why is Kamala, because in every society where the political instability, where the democratic process is tight and questionable, it blocks even the economic growth of that country. So political processes creates a very platform, an open platform for investors to be interested in investing in that country without any fear of favor. But when you look at the political situation in most of these Central African countries, if you are a democratic leader who is vying for a constitutional process that needs to be respected without somebody somewhere using his powers as far as his authority, go that way. So you yourself, you find it so very uncomfortable to come to that country, and America, which we know America has been very, very vocal as far as preaching democracy in the world is concerned, and when judging by that, I think Central African countries, they have a very long way to go to really convince democratic leaders, except people like the Putins who are supporting dictators that can easily come to Central Africa.
Thank you, President Njang. Denis, let me situate the context of the visit of Kamala Harris to Africa. She came to Africa on a tour to focus on development, economic development and security. Africa, and while in Africa, Kamala Harris was in Ghana, where she met with the Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo. During a speech, she promised $100 million to African countries to help them tackle insecurity. Let's watch an excerpt of that speech.
And I'm pleased to announce $100 million in support . Is the challenges Ghanaians are facing, especially in the wake of a global pandemic and the disruptions caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We welcome Ghana's commitment to reform the President, I believe we strengthen it even more.
That was Kamala Harris there delivering a speech after having talks with Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo. Honorable Ujambeng, we know the importance of Ghana when it comes to African democracy, their model, and so it's no surprise that Kamala Harris decided to start his visit in Ghana.
You see, this word democracy, to me, is really challenging, and I hear some foreign countries claim that they are democratic, when if you look at electoral practices in those countries, there is no democracy. And I can tell you that I do not actually have any belief of democracy, because biblically the Bible condemns democracy outrightly. It is because of democracy that Jesus Christ was crucified. Remember that. Sometimes it's good to give dictates to people when it is necessary. Let me draw you far back a bit. Biblically, remember, Barnabas was an ardent criminal. You know that. But I had the opportunity to release Jesus Christ when he wanted him crucified. Yeah. But he thought that bringing up an ardent criminal that had been troubling the people will look at the criminal and say, okay, let this man go, because he saw nothing bad in Christ. There was nothing bad. He said, this man, you say he's a king, that they do? Then let me go and be a king there, not here. Okay, between him and Barnabas, what do you choose? They say, Barnabas, crucify him. That was democracy. And you and I were suffering today if you are a Christian. And so I have to give a damn about democracy now. Sometimes you dictate to the people what is right. Let me draw another situation in Africa. Gaddafi was a very good leader, and he was referred to as a dictator. But look at the situation there now. And look at the situation when Gaddafi was here as a dictator, as they say. And tell me the truth. Which one do you prefer? So, you have your time to say whatever you want. I am not going to, please permit me.
No, you
have your time, sir. Don't bother. We have a good time to talk here. And so, I think that Africa is better without the Western world influence of what the so-called democracy. We are democratic by our own way of our cultures. And what has been causing the conflict in Africa is all the Western world influence through the back doors and then come back in from the front door to negotiate in order to bring peace. It's just a way to rob Africans from their hard earned and their resources. America, good in Central Africa is a part of the country where they're visiting. There have been no clear cut of a positive intervention in any of the American, the disputed countries where they go there for interventions. When they go there afterward, the aftermath is very bad. And so I don't really think that America can talk to us Africans so much about democracy. We haven't actually started asking the Americans what happened to Gaddafi. There are a lot of African leaders that have been tried under dictatorship. And this aspect they relate to, they call it the criminal code, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you that all this blah, 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 democracy, intervention here and there, it's just a song. It's just a song for countries that want to believe that America can have one way or the other. I don't give a damn to that. I don't really approve it. But I thank God that Central Africa is not part of it, because when they come, they don't just only come to settle dispute. They are after your minerals. They are after your riches. They are the same people who are going to create more problems in order to sit there and dig deep. So I don't really see anything good in what they're going to preach about democracy. Democracy. We witnessed elections in America. In Florida, elections were rigged in Florida. Nobody ever challenged that. Nobody ever challenged that. Okay, Mr. Etienne. I don't know, maybe you have to organize a one-on-one debate between her and Etienne. I see him bobbing. This is a problem where I have my time to talk, you will talk. You can denote all what I'm saying. You don't need to be quarreling me on it.
No, I'm not quarreling.
Okay. So those are dictations are other sides of quarreling, you know.
I'm not quarreling.
So I think that the countries in which America have online, I listened to Kamala talk about Ghana, talk about Tanzania, Zambia. These are the countries they are looking at some challenges there, and they think that they could offer money to these countries to be able to fight. Something which can come and go back at any time. So it is not about money, but about values.
Thank you so much, Honorable Ujambeng. You have the floor now. Ndage.
I want to add a few things my beloved Honorable said that are really, I am not, let me be honest, I'm of the press, and there are things, when you say things that you owned by Robert Murdoch. Today the Dominion are the people who organize. They have the voting machine that there was this false information being spread out by Trump. Listen to me. See, Robert Murdoch himself, the owner of Fox News, said no, they knew it. Then Sean Hannity, you have another one, with another name, there were three of them. Their texts came up that they knew that Biden won. But they were trying to say that just to keep the base, Trump base.
So they were saying that for the interest of Africa or the interest
I'm telling you, we are talking about election. I don't want to link it with
Africa. These are big nations.
Listen, Africa take this.
These are big nations.
This fake news
and
most of
against their own election.
But it's a battle between the Democrats and the Republicans, right?
I'm saying that it's not a battle because they see that Democrats were there. They thought they were spreading it, but behind they knew that their system is made in such a way that you can rig elections. That's one thing people don't know. You can't rig election in America. No, the people who organize election in America are not appointed by the president. No, it's not appointed by the executive. It's appointed by it's appointed, that is the people who control it's appointed by the House of Representatives and the Senate.
My dear ATM. Election.
No.
Whatever state is for war, it is already known that the election is
I want to come back to the context of Kamala Harris' visit to Africa. Listen, whether you or us Africa, we don't like it or not, Kamala Harris came. Her visit to Africa are the fallout of the U.S.-Africa summit. Do you know the president of the Republic of Cameroon was one the participant? Okay, so I'm telling you that these are the fallout of the U.S. African summit that most African presidents were signatory, they participated.
Yes.
So she came to Africa, she selected few countries that to her, to America, because it's not her, it's not her thing, it's American policy, it's American foreign policy. They believe that Ghana is an exemplary country in Africa when we talk of democracy. Today you criticize democracy, but in a party when you say democracy is a bad thing, we should debunk with, you don't believe it. When you say,
please, remember, I said,
I
do not give a damn about what
you don't give a damn, but you believe in the council.
Okay, let me come. Let us read this one of these points that was raised here by an expert trying to talk about the impact of the visit and understanding the agenda. The expert says at the national level in the United States of America, they view this visit as part of an effort by the United States to restructure its partnership with the African continent because the United States Congress seems to be divided about the U.S. budget. That is, the Biden administration has to work across the board to garner congressional support for implementing the commitments of the summit, the U.S.-Africa summit, and then to which will require a new type of political strategy. And so we know that there is tension and competition between the United States and China, as well as Russia in Africa. So the U.S., through this visit, wants to demonstrate at this level that partnership with Africa is meant to be mutually beneficial and long-term, and not solely a piece of a broader geopolitical game. And at the same time, two senior officials said the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit made it clear that the United States relationship with Africa should not and will not be defined by competition with China. The United States competition, the United States influence in Africa or relationship with Africa will not be determined by competition with China.
Do you think it's just a statement? I think what we are experiencing, everyone who knows, who masters the history of how, immediately after the Second World War, there was a new world ideology we have to do capitalism, communism. I think it's just an extension. I don't see anything new. Putin is just doing what the Stalins, the Khrushchevs, the Gorbachevs, all of them. It's a policy. And whatever US is doing, it started. So it's not new, it's just a policy that I think when they two of them, the ideologies, they have this exchange of ideologies, they do everything to ensure that they create allies. So it's just a new policy, like how it is normal. Even when the world was divided with two different ideologies, it was still that continuity where the days of the Krumas, we had the Morovia bloc headed by Kruma, and then we also had the Morovia, we had the in the history, one bloc that was more propagating communism, and then another bloc propagating capitalism. So it's still not that of the instauration of all what we have once experienced as far as history is concerned. You have to understand that America doesn't work alone. We will call it the West. It's the West. America is just that patron of the West. And they have opened So when America is speaking, you know that it's the whole Western bloc trying to block, and we know that it's a long-lasting, that always been that strong relationship between China and Russia based on their own ideology. So that's why I'm saying that historically it is just a continuity of spread of ideology. But let's come back within our African context, like what Romuald Ujambeng was saying. Democracy, when we talk about democracy, it's for the people, government for the people, and by the people. So if the people are the ones nobody talking about anything. And even in during our African continent, the days of kingdoms, let me tell you, even the days of the kingdom, it was even more democratic as you were trying to condemn democracy, because we have what we call the leader is there in almost all the West did not impose democracy on us. We decided to engage. The West were not the ones that fought for our independence. Most African countries fought for their independence to become independent, to determine their own minds. So when they were going on the contrary, that is the problem.
Exactly.
The question, are we really independent? And that is why when they were
President, we have an excerpt because we have two topics.
And that's why when they were leaving, they had to put in their puppets like President Aijo and the all the other we are facing today. So that is the consequence of what I can blame the West.
Okay.
Why they have to impose people on us who they will continue teleguiding and now become new colonialism.
Thank you, President Njang. Let's go to our missions to take a look at another excerpt this time around. While in Ghana, the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris was asked a question about how the United States has been able to manage the crisis that have been plaguing the entire world. They're talking about COVID-19 as well as the Russia-Ukraine war, which has had an impact on all facets of life. This is the answer she gave journalists in Ghana.
How have COVID-19 and Russia's invasion of Ukraine affected the U.S. economy in any way? And what lessons can smaller economies such as Ghana draw from the recovery efforts of the developed countries such as the U.S.? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Well, there's no question that there has been a global impact and the United States has not been immune. As a result of the pandemic, the global pandemic, and Russia's unprovoked war and aggression in Ukraine. When we all think of in particular, the days during the height of the pandemic, what that meant, not only in terms of the loss of life and normalcy, the loss of significant periods of education for our children, but also what that resulted in terms of shutting down almost completely integral supply chains, and how that then influenced not only the ability of families to get and satisfy their basic needs, but it shut down industries, and it really did bring our economy in the United States and globally significant damage. But we are recovering from that. In terms of the Russia's war, again, unprovoked in Ukraine, there have been a number of impacts globally and to the United States included. In particular, as it relates to the prevalence of our ability to have access to certain foods and grain in particular globally has been a big issue. So we have seen a spike in the cost of food, for example, and it is something that we are addressing. We saw inflated prices in terms of gas, which exacted a pretty significant toll on American families. We are now recovering because of some of the measures that our administration has taken to bring down the cost to American families. But going forward, let's recognize that there are a number of things on the issue of the economy as a whole that we must do, putting aside the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, even before the two became an issue for our nations. And a lot of that work is the work that I'm here to do on the continent, which is to look at how we can, as nations who are friends, who work together, who operate on the basis of shared principles, what we can do to engage in strengthening not only our security but our prosperity. A lot of the focus of my trip on the continent during these next few days will be on increasing the relationship, in particular from U.S. private sector for investment on the continent of Africa, knowing that it will generate prosperity to the benefit not only of the people on this continent, but the people in my country as well.
That was Kamala Harris there answering questions to Ghanaian journalists about how the United States has been able to cope with the negative impact of the Russian-Ukraine war. We will get to go back to our nations before we come to the studio and conclude the topic so that we can talk about the protests going on in Kenya. The last excerpt of Kamala Harris, the third excerpt, she spoke about how the United States is trying to impose itself faced with China's influence.
But the conversation was not about China as much as it is about the enduring and important direct relationship that the United States has with Ghana and with African nations. I will tell you that we are very clear, and I will speak for myself and on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration. Sense of optimism about what we do now and how it will impact the world going forward. So this trip and this relationship, yes, we are concerned with security, we are concerned with what is happening on the globe as a whole, we are clear-eyed about that, but this trip is motivated by the importance of the direct relationship between the United States and Ghana, and as I travel the continent, those countries as well.
We have relations in varying degrees of intensity with all of them. Our relationship with America is a relationship that has been forged over several decades, right from the time of independence and up till now. Vice President Harris referred to the
United States commitment to work with democratic governments in Africa. A memorandum of understanding was signed between the United States government and Tanzania for the Export-Import Bank of the United States and Tanzania to collaborate. And President Kamala Harris promised $500 million in financing to help United States companies export goods and services to Tanzania in sectors like infrastructure, transportation, digital technology, climate and energy, as well as security and power generation. Suluhu Hassan was committed to work with the United States to ameliorate and solidify relations between Tanzania and the United States of America. Let's listen to what Vice President Kamala Harris had to say in Tanzania.
You have been a champion in terms of democratic reforms in this country, and in that way have expanded our partnership. And so today then is part of the strengthening of the relationship between our two countries. And under your leadership,
Yes,
I have full confidence that we will be able to do just that.
it's my commitment. Thank you.
And the Biden-Harris administration is committed to strengthening this relationship going forward. Today we will discuss many topics. We have discussed a few already. But the topics we will continue to discuss include the issue, as you have raised, of democracy and good governance. We will discuss and continue to discuss the issue of long-term economic growth for Tanzania, the climate crisis, and then regional and global challenges. On the subject of democracy and good governance, as I said in Ghana, polling tells us the vast majority of Africans support democracy over other forms of government. This reflects a shared desire between us. And the United States will continue to work alongside democratic governments in support of democratic aspirations, and the democratic aspirations in particular of the people of this continent. Madam President, under your leadership, Tanzania has taken important and meaningful steps. And President Joe Biden and I help you.
Thank you.
You have been open to working with the political opposition. We have discussed that. You have lifted the ban on political party public rallies. You worked to improve the freedom of the press. And just yesterday, you participated, as you mentioned, in the Summit for Democracy. On the subject of economic growth, good governance delivers predictability, stability, and rule of law, which businesses need to invest. Working together, it is our shared goal to increase economic investment in Tanzania and strengthen our economic ties. To do so, I am pleased to announce a series of new initiatives. One, the Export-Import Bank will sign an MOU with Tanzania, which will facilitate up to $500 million in U.S. exports to Tanzania in the areas of transportation, infrastructure, digital technology, and clean energy projects.
Yes.
Two, we are launching a new partnership on 5G technology and cybersecurity. As I have been making clear on this trip to the continent, I believe that the innovation and ingenuity that is taking place here on the continent will shape the future of the world and will benefit the world. In Tanzania alone, thanks to your leadership, Madam President, and partnership with the private sector, work is currently underway to build the first of its kind processing facility on the continent for minerals that go into electric vehicle batteries. This will deliver battery-grade nickel to the United States and global markets as soon as 2026. This project is an important and pioneering model, using innovative and low-emission technology and high labor standards.
taking a look at the future, what should be the future of diplomatic relations between the United States and African countries?
Yes, the first thing which I think African countries should do, there needs to be a very strong African Union. African Union needs to be very strong, and they need to believe in themselves. We cannot afford to be depending on the Western world all the time. You see, sometimes when we talk about this democracy, and I feel a little bit disturbed about that word, democracy? No. So there are a lot of challenges in this word democracy. Well, we are in it. I think it's guided democracy. I can call it guided democracy. Well, we're into democracy, and we have noticed most of African leaders are practicing democracy based on what the Western world wants to believe as democracy. Like to see a currency that is that strong, unique for Africans, that shows the power of the people that we are. And then we can now look at the possibility of working together bilaterally with the Western world, because then we will have been economically strong, we will have our own money, which is an African money, and then we'll be able to go to the world market. Maybe those are the areas where we can talk and see how we can exchange our political views, how it could be beneficial to one and the other. But as of now, we are solely depending on the Western world. The money we have even in Cameroon is not our money. Don't forget about that. It's coming from the Western world. And so why are we going to be discussing with somebody who has the power to decide to do what you want? So I just think that the way forward is that the African Union should be strong. We should have an African back. We should be able to have one identity as Africans. But the identity should identify that you're African from this country. And then we should have one currency in Africa. With this, Africa will become very strong. We'll be able to market what we produce and sell it in the world market to compete with the others and see where we are weak. We could borrow from them to improve upon our own standards rather than accepting everything that comes from them as others.
Thank you, Honorable Ujambeng. It's Ndage, before we come to Njang Denis. We already have diplomatic relations with China. We already have a diplomatic relationship with Russia. What should be the specific areas of diplomatic relations between Africa and the United States? What should be our focus?
I can say the diplomatic relationship between Cameroon and America goes back long. And to be honest with you, Cameroon have long enjoyed American democracy. I hear most of our brothers, Pan-African, tell us about today China. They talk about, oh, China is coming, we want China. But none of their leaders go for a vacation in China. Do you know why? You hear people talk about Russia, oh, it's a big country, we want to go, Russia, Africa want to move towards Russia. Russia comes to Africa with nothing, they come with guns. Do you know where the gun they give to world leaders they pretend to support to do good? They give them the guns to kill. But when we talk about the relationship, even the United States, they give guns. You cannot go to someone and say, give me this. Take something that will be beneficial. Take back in Bamenda, I saw we had some schools that were called Japan. Primary schools that were offered. That's the kind of thing. a normal thinking human being should be looking at. You don't go to a country where you say, no, I'll give you, like, look at what's happening in Central Africa. Russia come and say, no, we'll give you, America, France is telling you, we'll give you, they bring in Wagner. The Wagner group, you know what they're doing? Somebody just take a look. Look, we should, in as much as Africa wants to be independent, in as we should fight to market ourselves. You said something very important. My brother, you said something very, very important. We should fight in marketing ourselves positively. And you cannot market yourself without copying a better example. Kamala Harris coming to selecting 3 African countries as an exemplary country that at least they respect their, because democracy is rule of law. Democracy is human rights. You don't beat up protesters that are going on the street to protest for better living condition. You lock them up. And you want somebody who you say is a pretentious democracy or any other word, but it is not done. Even in our African culture, when the subjects of the fun or the chief in other localities are hungry, they go to the palace. So we are tired. Our family inputs are not doing well. Give us this. And if you are the king, you beat them up and lock them, you are a bad leader. The people will do everything for you to disappear.
The conduct and the manner in which
Thank you, President, and then you are the person to conclude on this topic.
I want to say,
so you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, just 3 minutes. Thank you. I want to one. Honorable Ujambeng is really practicing or preaching vice, preaching virtues and practicing vice. Because he condemns democracy, but condemns the what the prophets earlier said. So therefore, as a democracy, it was pure form of democracy to actually validate the scripture. So if on the contrary, if those people would have said, say Jesus and crucified Barnabas, would have contradicted what God wanted for humanity. And today, if Christians are happy that they have a savior that died for them, it was that democratic polygon that was accepted by the people that crucified Jesus, so that today we talk about salvation. So down to that, we have Christianity. It was that democracy. The third aspect that I would want to and give them loans and sign accords where Chinese people want to extract our resources under the banner of developing Africa. They extract one, exploit Africans the more. Today you go to many African countries, they are crying that China should live with the manner in which they exploit with impunity. And It was not the West who has made him to be so relaxed that even to a point where he cannot even keep an accountability. There's no day that for the past 40 years, President Paul Biya, who Mr. Ujambeng protects, has never given an account to the Nigerians how. He is the man. No, he says he is the West. And I'm trying to give an example that these are some of the leaders that the West, if we want to talk about it, when you condemn someone, but your leader is a pro-West, and we all see how he's so attached to the West, and the West impose him on us. So it is not us. Let us. It is the West that impose him on us because of the unconstitutional. I know that when I said I don't believe in the West, I said I believe in our own values. Let us not mix up things here. We have been imposed. We decide what we want for our country. The West have never come in and decide on how we carry out. Magufuli carried out good policies in his country. During his first mandate, we saw the economic growth, we saw everything, the democratic process there. Nobody imposed on Magufuli. Nobody came and said Magufuli is what you have to do. Akufo is there in Ghana. No West has ever imposed an Akufo. Nobody imposed an Akufo what they have to do. So let us not divert from what we are discussing and want to blame the West for irresponsible leaders in Africa that have been unable to guarantee the aspiration of the people and will divert the cause.
Thank you, President Njang. Maybe you react 1 minute 30 seconds.
I just want to tell President Njang that there's not yet time for campaigns. There will come a time when you can come and campaign and say all the nasty things you think you can say, but I think politics is not war. We're talking about what do we stand to gain from this movement of the Vice President of America. And I'm saying my point of view. I don't know why you take so much offense on President Paul Biya. Well, I know you are canvassing to be a president one day, but this is not the way you become a president and behave, because a president is a gentleman. He looks at things globally. He doesn't stereotype. He doesn't take things very, very personal. What I was saying, even if I refer to the Bible, I was looking at the decisions that were taken. If the people have chosen that Jesus Christ be crucified and Barnabas be set free, between you and I, you know that the person that was supposed to be crucified was Barnabas, not Jesus Christ. So the decision, that's what I'm saying. The democracy gave a wrong decision and it was implemented. Though you said it was in a way to validate the word of God.
And that is the democracy that
let us be honest. I think African presidents are doing their best. They're doing their best. I just challenged the steps of the Western world, the America. Why are they making steps today? They have been there all along. Permit me, sir. Why are they enforcing this now? Talking so much about China, Russia.
It's not today.
Were it not for the war in Russia and Ukraine, you'll not be hearing of coming here to talk about China doing this, Russia doing this. But I think that they have a fair share of the blame of what is happening in Africa. They have. Because if you look at the time, I remember when I was in primary school, talking of I talked about the Union of Africa, and they said they were giving us Organization of African Unity. Was that democracy? Take time to respect what Africa wants. So we cannot keep on saying that they're doing everything about it is good. No, I just guided democracy.
Honorable Ujambeng, your time is up. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching 90 Minutes in Africa. If you're watching us on Canal Satellite, you can watch us on channel 309. You can watch us on MO 17. You can watch us on the Nsungkikang Network. And on Facebook, go to My Media Pen TV on Facebook and BT Media Group on YouTube, and share widely so that others can watch. Our next topic is the situation in Kenya, violence and protests in Kenya as Raila Odinga and other protesters contest the result of the presidential election and also decry the poor standards of living in that country with an increase in the prices of basic goods and services, as you know, which has been made worse by the ongoing war in Russia and Ukraine, and at the same time too, Kenya has been experiencing a drought in that country. The situation has really been horrible, with images you are going to see right now, and they will come back and start our analysis on what other African countries can do to prevent themselves from getting into this kind of situation. Let's take a look at the situation. Okay, let us now watch the other images and then we'll come back. Let's watch the other images. That was part one. Let's watch the other images of the situation there. Results of the presidential election. Ndage, you already know the situation in Kenya. Is that a surprise?
It's not a surprise because I know, a little bit about the guy, the opposition, the main opposition guy. He's So technically, listen to the speeches of Kenyatta, you see that. Look, we've seen where outgoing president, like in Nigeria, just what we watch, outgoing president will go on the campaign trail and campaign for the incumbent, campaign for the person because people say no, he's the one who positioned it. But when you go deep, no. Raila Odinga has been there for ages, and I think when I look at it from my own analysis, I think he's trying to do what this guy, my namesake, Tshisekedi did in Congo. But he has contested, he's been in opposition for life. When he died, they came to some mutual understanding where the people around, that the power, the people that the kingmakers of Congo decided that Tshisekedi has been there for long, so let's try to, since your father was there, you came, took over, now let's allow him have a taste, let's allow Felix Tshisekedi to have a taste of what his father has been longing for. Probably, I just think that Raila Odinga, it could be in his mind. I'm not saying, I cannot certify that is what he's thinking. Because I don't understand. This man has contested election for 5 times. This is the 5th time failing. So I think our opposition leaders should also learn the lesson and try to see how to, because after all, we are fighting for the betterment of our people. If you think that is not going, I think you need to use another measure. Look, it's shocking to see that he actually went and asked his supporters to go to the streets. I know life is bad there, it's horrible with the drought that is there, but asking people, politicizing a natural problem, it's another problem you are creating.
Let's have the view of our opposition leader here in the studio. Is this the right way to go for opposition leaders?
I think the present leader is
William
Ruto. Yes, William Ruto. I think he was the vice of Uhuru Kenyatta. And when you talk about the vice, we know that vice, their powers are limited. The way president was Uhuru Kenyatta. So I would have been talking about incumbent if I would have been like looking at the perspective if David Ruto is
William Ruto.
William Ruto, if William Ruto was the incumbent and was still re-elected. So that's not even the case. Like what my co-panelist just said, that even the incumbent was even somehow campaigning for
the opposition.
For the opposition, yes. So this goes back to I am of the opposition. I think the opposition mindset is to bring in policies that will develop the country. Oppositions are also Republicans. Most of the time, what we contest is the poor management of the constitution, non-respect of constitution, or non-respect of the electoral process. But when I followed elections in Kenya, the electoral process was very, very okay. It was fair. There was no contest. I remember one time under Uhuru Kenyatta, this same Raila Odinga contested the result, and the Supreme Court gave the go ahead and should do what a rerun to please him if he feels that his allegations are okay, which that is what we opposition man everything will be affected. But I was shocked that Raila Odinga refused to go in for the rerun. As I went part of this, because I was saying, wow, that is what we want. If elections are okay, the democratic process are okay, the judicial system is transparent, I of the opposition, what we are again, that what we have in decline. But if I see a country where all those values are respected and someone somewhere is still contesting, that one is no longer what we opposition, we are that one is still just to destabilize the
That's not the only reason. The other reason,
behind the aspect of cost of living and all that and so forth. It happens in almost all countries. I think Raila and William Ruto must have addressed that situation, and he has must have promised. He has also said he's also attacking their own electoral commission to give him access to certain the access to the document, no, the access of the results, I think the hard copy, something like that, for him to, but that is not the competence of the or is in or their own is what I don't know their own. The independent electoral commission. Raila Odinga is an opposition, he's a statesman, he knows the right channel to follow. In fact, the Supreme Court has demonstrated on many occasions in Kenya that they are transparent, they are independent. So why is still bypassing those institutions which have demonstrated even to him that we are okay and creating chaos and destruction?
Thank you, Denis. Let's watch Raila Odinga explain. We have an excerpt of Raila Odinga explaining why he is protesting alongside others.
And most of them having the audacity to misrepresent facts in our country. Like the American ambassador yesterday addressed American businessmen, saying that Kenya in last year in August did the most transparent and democratic elections in
be lying to myself. Because it's almost a tradition that all opposition parties will condemn elections and declare that they are not credible. So if we see Odinga going to the street, it's another way to prove how strong he is. Just a few minutes ago, you saw Mr. Njang was condemning President Paul here. That's how the opposition have always been acting. They see nothing good in the person who is leading. But I think that we can do better in Africa without destroying one another, without destroying property or sharing blood. We can put on our arguments democratically, peacefully, and point out the lapses which we think we are not comfortable with, especially in election practices. There's a power that here in Kamala will talk of the Supreme Court, where they look at those electoral vices and put them into order. I think that in Kenya was already done as
we have the Constitutional Council.
The Constitutional Council. And so we just saw that in Kenya everything went well, though the opposition does not see it that way. These are the challenges that we have in Africa. How do we put our opposition leaders together so that we fight a common front towards the development of Africa and not creating destruction because our interests are not attained? This is where the problem is. Let me just emphasize in Cameroon. We remember in the early 90s when at the advent of multipartism, SDA was created and winning for election contested, failed the election, but declared that they had won elections. And you see manipulated young people, they were on the street destroying, killing one another. And if you go to Bamenda, you will see there's a young man there. After every bus stop, he comes there with imputed hands begging for money. That is, those are the aftermath of when you send children on the street. And so what is happening in Kenya, there are going to be families that will suffer because of this. And that's just because one person thinks that his ego has not been attained, and so there should not peace in that country. I think I take this opportunity to talk to our opposition leaders. It is good, the opposition there is there to check to check, and we want to see the lapses of the party in power, but let that be in a more mature way of making the party in power to know that here there's a lab here, there's a lab here, there's a lab here, so that they can better all the situation. Contest the election does not mean that you must win. Just participating is already contributing to nation building. That's why I give a handshake to my dear president who is sitting here for accepting for once that what is happening in Kenya is worth condemning. Thank you so much.
It's in Ndage, until now we are surprised that Raila Odinga has not yet been arrested. I think if Raila Odinga was in some other countries, they would have been behind bars by now.
No, there's something about human rights and rule of law in every Anglo-Saxon country, most of the Anglo-Saxon countries in Africa. I want to add to what my brother said. There's something about political parties, opposition to be precise. When you create a political party, the main thing, that is, the most thing, everything that when you are creating a political party, your idea is to be able to govern the country. Governing the country, and if you don't succeed in governing the country, maybe your manifesto did not go well with your electorate who would have elected you to be at the helm of the country. Now, what you do what is called checks and balance of the person or the party who is governing. You do that. Also, you act as a watchdog between the people down there and the powers. But what I've seen in Kenya from Raila Odinga, I think in most fairness, I think he's just trying to be relevant. Because from what Raila Odinga is doing, I think it's a little bit too much for an opposition leader to do. And I don't wish any of our opposition leader in Cameroon do this kind of thing.
Njang, Denis, are you surprised that till now Raila Odinga has not been arrested in Kenya? Do you think if he was maybe in a country like Cameroon, he would have still been lodged in the street?
Yeah, I want to say something clear here. I think my brother, the Honorable Ujambeng, shouldn't misquote me or misunderstand me, because we need strong institutions, not strong individuals where they will manipulate the constitution and grab all the institutions into their hands and manipulate them for their interests. That's why we are fighting against. But we see in Kenya, before Kenya, I said, wow, this is the first time where you see the Supreme Court being transparent and independent. That is what we are. Your point. I was expecting him to take the million, but unfortunately, he withdrew. I mean, we have such institutions here in Cameroon where we have a constitutional council that is transparent. We have a Supreme Court that we have. Our judicial system is highly respected. Our electoral system is credible enough. We of the opposition, because of what we have been decrying, we don't have any problem like what we have seen in Kenya. So if you have not been arrested, it goes a long way of what I'm saying to be that that's kudos to the democratic values that is being respected, the human rights that is fully. I want to say kudos to the President William Ruto, who has proven to the world that he truly is a Democrat and he respects certain level of human rights, democratic values, and he has given an opportunity for Raila Odinga to even protest. And then it's unfortunately that the protest took a different turn.
And do you think that Raila Odinga,
no leader in the world will sit and see?
Do you think Raila Odinga will probably he is probably looking to be appointed Prime Minister under Michael?
I think what I don't think Raila Odinga really is really vying for any position.
He just wants to
I think he just wants to prove to be relevant. He just wants to prove a point to the international community that he still has what it takes to bring down Kenya, so they should give him some level of respect and honor, because if it was a government of national unity, in fact, I'm not refusing the fact that Raila Odinga doesn't really control, because he came from the official result, and William Ruto has 7-point-something million votes, while he came with 5-point-something million.
The most popular candidate.
Good, okay, good. So you see that we are not refusing the fact that it's not very, very influential. But what we are condemning is the fact that I think he knows what he has to do, and if he doesn't do it, and he has been doing it, and the results have always been in his favor, and it doesn't apply. So
thank you, President Njang. We have 3 more minutes to end. We have 3 more minutes to end, President Njang.
Let me just conclude here. If he's not been arrested today, I think Kenya should serve as an example to the party of Honorable Ujambeng, that they should learn to respect human rights, because we saw what an opposition here even carried out a protest against their votes that way. He was given an example of the SDF that said their votes were contested, but we all know the official results. That SDF won at 1990.
The official results. Many
candidates who took part testified.
Yeah, it was the
UNCP candidate was the second. I'm not an SDF militant, or SDF won the election. It was 1990. There was nothing there that we should be debating. UNCP came second and President Boh Elvis came third. There is no debate. The facts are still there. So it is normal for them to protest, but give people the right to protest. But if the institutions are there, credible enough for you to answer the aspiration of the people, I don't say anything.
I just wanted to say that those were not the results declared officially.
No, but we have had so many candidates, and even those who were part of the electoral process. We all know who's Afriacn. Who Afriacn represent in Africa and Cameroon. He has made on several platforms. He has discussed several platforms. NGF won, and we have had many other high-profile politicians concerned.
Okay,
Ujambeng comes from the body that organizes.
And that is why there was a question mark on the bottom.
Okay, 40 seconds, please, before they cut us off there. Just 30 seconds, 30 seconds.
We are here to educate and entertain, and not to give wrong information to Cameroonians. If I look at the president who wants to go, is looking for an opportunity, a ticket for Cameroonians to give him an opportunity to rule Cameroon, when it comes to a problem like this and tell wrong information to the people to buy. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. But you just talked about condemning issues happening in Kenya, and the other time again you are. So I don't know, you are consistently inconsistent. You need to be consistent. Just to end up, I want to say that we are in trying times, and our democracy in Africa is very so challenging. We will do our best, keep talking to Cameroonians, as talking to Africans on platforms like this, that we can make the difference, not by destroying what is already in existence.
Thank you, Etienne, Ndage. Just 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much. I think I want to salute, first of all, the system that William Ruto, the current president of Kenya, because in other countries we would have seen dead bodies flowing in the street, blood flowing.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much, President Denis, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ndage, for coming.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to watch the program 90 Minutes in Africa. Special thanks to our studio manager, Serge Biwole, to the producer, Romuald, Ngatsa, and the technical coordination in Douala of Eli Nolinga Ewane. The program was coordinated by Kung Leonard, supervised by Brian Tambe. I am Boh Elvis, thanking you for watching. See you next week for another edition of 90 Minutes in Africa, God willing.
Broadcasting, My Media Prime, news, discovery, culture, sports, entertainment, a BT Media Group channel with slogan, The African Eye. My